Morning. Grateful to be here and inside this morning due to rain outside, which I'm so very grateful for. Jim and Kathy, welcome to you this morning. Sorry if it's a little echoey in here. I'm in my office, which isn't very big, has walls all around me, so might hear little reflections from the speaker this morning. Deanne Fine, good morning. I trust everyone's Christmas was a blessing, that everyone stayed safe and enjoyed the blessings of God and the grace of God this last weekend. Carmen, good morning to you. Welcome, everybody. Sally Crocker, good morning. Welcome, everybody. Mike and Joe Stromberg. Hoping everybody's enjoying a nice hot drink, whether that's tea or coffee or whatever it is, your beverage of choice. Jan Akins, good morning to you and this beautiful Monday morning. This is the time of year where I'm, very reflective. As the year ends, there are two times in my year, my annual experience, that I purposefully sit and reevaluate. Is my microphone not working right? I plugged it in. Maybe I'll try again. If that works. Janisa, good morning. So yeah, this is a normal part of my annual experience of reflecting on the past year and looking forward to the next. The two times I do it are right around my birthday, which is in September, beginning of September, and then the new year. They're just two normal reflective times of just kind of evaluating my life and where my heart is, what my experiences are, and so looking back with thanksgiving and gratitude. And so that's been my experience this last weekend. It's easy to reflect on the fact that both our girls are home right now, and experiencing and rejoicing in the blessing of family, and all we have to be grateful for as we experience the giving and receiving of gifts, the generosity, and how exciting it is to have purchase something that you think that somebody you love is going to enjoy, and you're watching them open it, and it's just so fun. It's so fulfilling to do that. And so I reflect on today on how God must feel. He is the one whose generosity abounds, his generosity knows no limits. Jesus said it's better to give than to receive. And, we experience a taste of that when we give gifts to one another, and we experience the joy of watching someone, especially if we have young children at home, but even just any friends, family, whom we, take the time to purchase and wrap this gift. We've been thoughtful about it, and we give that person, we're just anticipating what their response might be. And it's just a really fun experience. And here is God, who is the greatest giver, the one who loves to give good gifts. How excited he must be in heaven when he watches us experience his grace, experience his favor, experience his presence, and recognize it for what it is, and truly have hearts of gratitude. So one of the exercises that I do this time of year is I reflect on the previous year in its entirety, and I project forward what I anticipate the upcoming year to look like. And do I need to adjust my life? Do I need to adjust my practices Where is God prompting my heart to be more aware of His movements, to be more aware of His presence in my life, so that I can act and move and make decisions and interact with other people in a way that would reflect who God is in me. And so I just invite you into that process a little bit this week, and particularly today. So I start with gratitude. I start with looking back and recognizing the blessing of God in my life. And we've received so many Christmas cards this year. We do every year, and we're so grateful for that. And one of the commonalities, and ours was no different. We reflected on it too, and we sent our Christmas card out. Everybody's Christmas card, or at least it was 99% at least, reflected on our common experience of 2020 being a very difficult year. Plans being canceled, limitations being imposed, frustrations. Many of us experienced loss in 2020 that was exasperated by the limitations of 2020. And so it's easy when you look back on 2020 to hit those as our high points, not our high points, the impact points of our year, is describing it as a year of loss. And honestly, this is also the time of year that I do my pastoral annual report for the upcoming our annual meeting, and how we reflect back. And so I reflect on 2020 in my annual pastoral report for Grace Fellowship. And I really, this year, really chose not to see 2020 as a year of loss. I really look at it as a year of gain, because this year I experienced God in ways, I experienced His grace, His good gifts, in ways that I didn't expect. And that is through difficult times, through challenges, through testing and trials. And we know that God, when He allows us to experience discipline, it's a reflection of God's love for us. He says in Hebrews chapter 12 that when we experience trials in our life, we could look at it as discipline from God, as being an example that we are legitimate children, that God truly loves us, that His eyes are upon us, and that He is very present with us when we go through such times. I was reflecting this morning on Psalm 46, verse 1, that says, the Lord is our strength, our refuge and our strength, an ever-present help in times of trouble. And anytime we experience difficulty or challenges or trouble, we can rejoice in the ever-presence of God, whose grace abounds on our behalf. When Paul experienced the difficulty of his thorn in the flesh, whatever that was, Jesus, and he prayed that it would be removed. Jesus answered to him that my grace is sufficient for you. I want you to understand the depth of the sufficiency of who I am and my presence in your life, and that it's going to abound toward you through these challenging times. And so in reflection like these, God has revealed to me some deep truths about Himself this past year, some deep truths about my own heart, even my shadow nature, that He's called out in very profound ways and made me aware of these things in my life that I need to relinquish and hand over to Him and allow His work to abound in my life. And so my youngest, Mackenzie, gave me a gift. One of the gifts she gave me is a book that she said has been very profound in her life this year. And you can't read it because it's backwards, but I'll tell you, Practicing His Presence. It's a classic work by two different people, Brother Lawrence and Frank Laubach. And Brother Lawrence lived in the 1600s. Frank Laubach, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, lived in the early 1900s, and it's a collection of their writings. It's just a really thin book. You can see how small it is, on rejoicing in the presence of God. In the opening chapter, there was a reflection by Frank Laubach on the previous year of his life in 1930 being the finest of his experience. And he says this: to be able to look backward and say, this has been the finest year of my life, that is glorious. And in the context, what he's talking about is experiencing the kindness of God, not his circumstantial experience, not any achievements. In fact, he'll say later in it that God, or maybe it was in the introduction, that God measures us not on our achievements or our trophies, he would say, but more about, he measures us on our scars. I thought that was interesting. And as he reflects on this, he says, this being the finest year, and as it relates to experiencing God's kindness, he says, I have done nothing, as far as his own credit, I have done nothing but open windows. God has done all the rest. That was a pretty interesting statement. I really enjoyed reading and reflecting on, which led me this morning to another verse that I think is just so important. I was reflecting this morning, again, looking back and expressing with gratitude all of God's gifts, his abounding grace toward me in 2020. And it was a long list of things, and there was many things that I left out. It was just a time of reflection. And how good God is. And as I reflect on, it's kind of as I look back on 2020 and the very painful experiences that I've had in 2020 on a very personal level, I won't go into any detail about that. I've mentioned several things throughout the year to you, but how in every instance, God's presence, his grace, his kindness toward me was so evident. And the growth that he was producing in me was so welcome in my life. And I'm just so grateful for that. And which led me to a verse this morning. I feel like that one of the things I was trying to reflect on is, God, what do you want me to focus on as I look forward? That was, I reflected on looking backward. But as I look forward to 2021, how do I anticipate it being one of the finest years yet in my life? And now I can't control the circumstances of 2021, but I can certainly focus on God's presence, which doesn't, there's no shifting shadow of who God is. He is always our strength and our refuge in times of need, times of trouble. He's ever present. His grace abounds. So when I'm thinking of that, how I reflect on God's kindness looking forward, God led me to a verse in 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 8. It was rolling around in the back of my mind, and I did a little searching and I found it. And it's this verse here. I love this verse. God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that having all sufficiency in all things at all times, you may abound in every good work. And as I think about moving forward, and maybe a verse that kind of directs my steps in the upcoming year, 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 8 may be that verse. God is able. It says the word all 4 times. God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that having all sufficiency or all satisfaction, all contentment in all things, that's good and bad, right? At all times, that's 4, you may abound in every good work. So God's grace flows to us in every way that we possibly need. God's multifaceted grace, his provision, his good gifts, his generosity, his kindness, his presence, his strength abounds to us. This multifaceted grace at all times, in every circumstance, for every need, so that we in turn can abound in good works, that we can in turn be generous with that same kind of grace to every person around us. And I truly want that to be descriptive of my life in 2021, to bask in the goodness and abundant grace of God so that I can be, in turn, a reflection of that same grace. Not that I have done anything. All I have done is open windows and allow God's grace to flow in. God will do all of the rest. And so as you think about him today, and you may also be pondering, 2021, what's that going to look like? I hope that you spend some time looking back with gratitude and seeing the kindness of God and looking forward to God's presence, his abounding grace in your life, that you in turn may abound and be a reflection of God's grace. May you open the windows in 2021 and allow God to direct your steps in such a way that you might say, this is the finest year yet. God bless you today, and we'll see you again tomorrow morning.